Inner Growth Podcast. On today's episode, we are in for a treat. I just finished recording with Alyssa Brieloff. She is an amazing spiritual content creator. She's a Reiki healer, a brand consultant, and she calls herself a soulpreneur, which I love. She is all about like living your life connected to your soul and just living with a sense of intention and awareness. And in this conversation, we kind of dove into her own inner growth journey. So her journey as an entrepreneur, all the growth that activated for her, how she first came into contact with Reiki and how that evolved for her, how she became a healer. We also talked a little bit about being a sponge, like being an empath. How do you protect yourself energetically? How do you find a sense of grounding and safety in your body if you live in a big city, or just, if you feel like you're constantly stimulated? We talked about just like the realities of healing and working through limiting beliefs and so many amazing things. It was such a powerful conversation and I absolutely loved it. She also has these amazing angel number socks. So she gave me a code for them and they will be linked in the description if you're interested in getting them. They're so cute. I have some myself and I just love supporting my friends' businesses and small businesses overall. So definitely check them out if you're looking for some cute socks. And without further ado, let's just jump into the episode. I know you're absolutely going to love her. She's such an angel. She's literally just a grounding presence and truly a pure, amazing soul. So let's hop into it. Let's get growing, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How's your day going so far? You excited?
I mean, it's like a heat wave in New York, so I'm just melting. And we were talking right before this, like, don't get pregnant where you're going to be in your third trimester in a heat wave in the summer. I'm just putting that out there. You're welcome. You'll thank me later because I'm unwell.
It's like you're just going to have to be inside in the AC.
Yeah, basically. It's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to be recording. It's so fun to record in person with everyone, and I'm still kind of adjusting, even though I've been doing it for a little while, and I feel like I was trying to think back to the first time that we met.
I know. I was just thinking about this.
But I can't remember the first time.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like an event or something. And
oh, I know. It was what was that?
Was it Mind Body Project?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, but we were like connected and following each other for like and talking before then. Because I initially found your podcast somehow. I don't remember how. And was just like obsessed with it. And
Wait,
then
really?
Yeah.
You discovered me through the podcast?
Yeah, it was when it was like very astrology focused.
Wait, maybe it was the Astro series that I did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so now full circle moment. Now you're in the podcast.
I am here.
This is so fun. And the first thing I like to ask all of my guests is, can you just give a little intro on yourself and then also share your sun, moon, and rising?
Love it. So
and more if you want.
Okay. So I call myself a spiritual soulpreneur, which essentially is an entrepreneur, but with a more intentional and soul-driven, like mission, purpose-driven approach. And so how that works is I work with brands in the wellness and spiritual space. I create content, and then I also have my own brand that I, make content for. I do energy healing, I do meditation, so I kind of wear many hats, and I also make spiritual products. So I do kind of a bunch of different things. And for my astrology chart, so I'm a Virgo sun, Leo rising, and Aquarius moon.
Wait, you're a Leo rising?
Yeah.
I don't think we had talked about your big three.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
which I feel like
resonate?
Yes, in the sense that I feel like I can come across probably with social media like a little bit more outgoing and like maybe not like less approachable, but just like that's the message I've gotten from people, and then they get to know me and I'm actually like more grounded with the Virgo, and that's what I feel more to my core is like a more grounded, not reserved, but like
the earth energy. Yeah, I feel like you're such a Virgo.
Yeah,
like
I'm like a typical
like the healing kind of like side of things, and I also feel like with the Leo, that means that you have a Taurus midheaven. Mm-hmm. So it's like your career house is also very grounded and very much like earthy and like connected to the physical body and things like that.
Yeah, and I feel like the fire kind of gives me like a push to like do things more. So yeah.
What about the Aquarius moon? I'm so curious about Aquarius moons because my mom is an Aquarius moon.
Really?
My brother's girlfriend has an Aquarius moon.
Oh, interesting. So you're like connected.
I'm curious about how you feel about it.
For a while, I didn't like really resonate, but then like I look back and I realized that there was like, because it's your emotions, right? Like
yeah.
So I like kind of felt for a while that I was like in a spiritual closet and that I was not really sharing my truth. And I still kind of can get into that shadow aspect of like being a little bit more reserved. But then when I leaned into like, it's kind of like that feeling where Aquarius kind of feels like they're like an outcast.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like that for a lot of my life in certain aspects. But I feel like the more I lean into that, into the authenticity, I'm able to like shine and be more of a leader in the space. And I do feel innovative in a lot of ways. So I feel like that does resonate. But it's about like navigating the three because I kind of feel like I'm sometimes
Yeah.
at war with all three of them. Like they're very
They're a little
different.
bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like Aquarius and Leo are opposite
Yeah.
signs. So that means that you have your moon in the seventh house. It could be in your eighth, but
Yeah.
the seventh house is all about your relationship. So it's also like
Yeah.
a lot about your romantic relationship and partnership and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like feeling like you're drawn. Maybe is your husband a little bit more analytical?
Yes. He's a Gemini all across the board, like
Oh
double
yeah,
Gemini,
same.
Taurus. So I feel like we relate because we both have the same Mercury, like our communication stuff. Um,
Which Mercury?
um, I guess it would it be
No,
the
I don't
same?
think you would have the same Mercury.
Oh, I guess the Mercury rules both of our houses. Is that what it is? If you're a Virgo and a Gemini?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have like other
Yes.
similar things, but then we're like also very different. Like I'm more grounded, obviously, with the Virgo, but he's more practical and like realistic. And I'm a little
Uh-huh.
bit, I think the Aquarius makes me a little bit like
Dreamier.
dreamier. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Pedro actually is a Gemini, but his sun is in the Virgo house, so he has a lot of both of those
Yeah.
energies. So I'm pretty familiar
Yeah.
with like that intersection. I feel like it goes really well,
It
like Gemini and
does.
Virgo.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, sometimes we can butt heads, like obviously, but I think he helps me to be a little bit like more in the clouds and a little bit more one practical, but then sometimes like I feel more childlike. Like he brings out more of the fun and lightheartedness
Yeah.
with the air, and I'm like a little bit sometimes can be too in my head and perfectionist. So he helps
Yeah.
me get out of that headspace.
Yes, as a Taurus, like an earth sign,
Yeah.
I also resonate a lot with that. It's like we
Yeah.
need that little playfulness,
Mm-hmm.
energy, and just like sometimes realizing that we're taking some things too seriously.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So, in terms of like your own inner growth journey,
Yeah.
what do you feel like has been the biggest source of growth for you? Or like when did your inner growth journey start?
Probably when I started doing my own work and like in the sense of being a consultant and kind of leaving the more traditional work space. I always like think of this and people say it a lot and it resonates a lot with me that having your own business and being an entrepreneur is like a spiritual awakening
A
and like
100%.
like you go through so much growth in that and you learn so much and there's constant ebbs and flows, there's constant ups and downs. And I don't know why, but I told you I was not sleeping last night and I woke up and thought about this of like all of the businesses that I failed at in the sense that like I only failed them because I didn't launch them, not because I launched them and they didn't do well, but all of these ideas that I kind of started or was going to create and then I just dropped them off. And not that in the sense that it's a failure, but a learning of like it wasn't the right time. There were certain things I learned from all those experiences that got me to where I am. But I think what I've learned the most is you only fail when you don't try. And so I'm continuously putting myself out there. I'm continuously learning what feels in alignment for me, and that's like my biggest mission is to be in alignment with my truth and to help others to see that in themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. Like when you're working for yourself, it's literally like you're always going through ebbs and flows. And
Yeah.
like you're going to have phases of like a lot of growth and then phases of maintenance, phases of like doubting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of this continuous coming back to like your purpose.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with the concept of like a soulpreneur? Like how did that come to you?
Well, I was working for myself for a while, and you know how it's kind of the term like a solopreneur.
Uh-huh.
I didn't like love that, and I did work with a few people. Like I've worked with different brands and different creatives and like-minded people. But what I realized was like for a while it was more about the freedom. Like I loved that I could work with any client, and then I started realizing like I have to tone this in and really feel like what's aligned. Like I can't just take on everyone. I have to work on with brands that are truly in resonance with what my mission is, whether I'm creating content for them or I'm helping them with a strategy. So I think it just came about of like I'm very spiritual and I wanted to somehow bring in that essence into my work of like how can I be more authentic and just intentional with the work I'm putting out and how I'm showing up as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and like in your personal branding.
Yeah.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really cool. And how did you like first come into spirituality? Because like as I was saying before, we have known each other
Yeah.
for a while, but we haven't talked about like your journey as much. I don't
Yeah.
even know if we've talked about mine that much either.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm really curious about how you came into spirituality. Like how did it come into your life? Like how old were you? What started it? And yeah, let's go back to the beginning.
I had a very interesting story and upbringing. So my grandmom, she's my bubby, a Jewish grandmom, and she got into spirituality through she was having a lot of pain. She had like a condition in her face that caused her pain, so she would go get Reiki. And I was really young. I was 8 years old about, and she took me with her to her Reiki circles because like she was like, I think you would really like this. I was really anxious. I was going through just stuff with my parents, divorce, and typical kind of like navigating different life
How old were
situations.
you?
I was 8 at the time.
8. Okay.
And so she took me to kind of this Reiki circle that was specifically for children. So people were bringing their kids, and it was like to help them learn that there's energy and that we all have energy, and how can you work with your energy. So that was my first initial interaction and I guess exposure to this type of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really realize, I don't think at the time, obviously, that it would stick with me, but it really did carry throughout my childhood, throughout my young, like adult life. And looking back, I see all the times that it really was part of just ingrained in how I lived. So from going crystal shopping with my grandma and,
Oh, that's so
like
wholesome.
before they were like even a thing, like I would like go and pick out crystals specifically for like, I had anxiety, I was like young when I was like, I just want, if I was homesick or whatever, I was having a stomach ache, like I would use these tools to help me. And she
So
would
cute.
give me Reiki, and just like she would constantly help me to see that I had this kind of power within me. Um, and then fast forward to, I kind of had my first panic attack, I guess, in high school. And I started just having like heart palpitations and really bad anxiety for no reason. And that's when I started to see a regular Reiki practitioner that would help me with my chakras. And she was specifically helping to move the energy throughout my body. And that's when I really got into chakras in general, and just like the power of our energy centers, and how like if one is off, like the others can be off, and like what each one means. Like, why does this one mean this? Why is it causing this reaction in my body, like physically and
Uh-huh.
emotionally? So that like stuck throughout college, where I had essential oils with me. Like, I had crystals with me. I would try to help my friends, like if they were going through things, like to see like, here's other ways to calm down. Here's other ways to like kind of go inward. And then had like kind of a reawakening, I guess, after my grandpa passed. So this was like right after college, about like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Actually longer, because I've been out of college longer than that. I don't know. But he passed like a few years ago, and I think I just like wanted to feel connected to him still, because we were really close, and I wanted to know that I was connected to the universe. And so I just started seeing angel numbers. Like that's my whole angel number like journey, that I
Mm.
started seeing 333. So I wear my 333 necklace, and to me, because it means support, and I felt that I was being guided from the universe. And this was also around the same time that like I was going through a huge transition in work and my career, and like that's when I was like leaving the corporate world. And so it was like a lot of change at once, and I was starting to go to like workshops. I was learning more about astrology. I was really just like doing all these things to discover more about myself, like self-awareness, self-discovery tools that was just teaching me more about like what made me me, what made my energy unique, how could I work with it. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really the intention to like serve or help others. I just feel like that like happens, I guess, as a Virgo. Like it just naturally happened.
We
But
like naturally in college we're like carrying crystals and like asking
right.
people what was going on.
Yeah. But I did always feel like my friends came to me for like advice, and I felt like nurturing, but I didn't realize that's really what I wanted to do. I actually, one of the businesses that I almost started was a subscription box for spirituality tools. Like this was literally like my marketing assignment for my senior year graduation, and it was before subscription boxes were a thing. So
Oh
like
my gosh.
I had this whole idea.
Visionary energy.
Yes, exactly. And I had this whole idea of just like, I'm going to launch this. And then I took a step back again. It wasn't the right timing for me. And I'm glad I didn't, because then I felt like the space kind of got like really saturated. But, that kind of started this journey of like, I want to somehow bring this into a business. Like, I know that I'm going to help people in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just started happening. Like I got reattuned in Reiki right before the pandemic. And again, was more using it for myself, but throughout the pandemic was seeing that like people were coming to me and like wanting Reiki, and I was offering courses, and I was starting to create and share more about like my teachings and like the chakras and just what I've learned growing up.
When
And
did you
how
start your page?
I started my Instagram. So it's funny, I started in college and my Instagram was so different. It was very much focused on like food. Like I was known as like I
Mm-hmm.
kind of became like an influencer before it was a thing, because I just posted food. I loved like really pretty looking food.
Like recipes?
More like
Like restaurants?
restaurants and like honestly unhealthy things, because I'm like like I eat junk food sometimes, and so it was like anything that just like looked good. It was like eating, like those
Yeah, I
foodie
actually like
accounts.
fun fact. I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but side note, when I was in college, I actually had an Instagram called Hungry Caro,
Oh my
and I
god.
used to go and like post about restaurants that I would go and try in Philly, and like just
Yeah,
share like, oh,
same.
like got this Brussels sprouts or like the Continental or whatever, like the different restaurants, and like tag the restaurants,
Right.
and then COVID hit, and I was like, okay, I guess like there's no use for this account
Right.
anymore. Like I can't go out to eat. That's how I started like cooking at home and like kind
Wow.
of went into like more of the wellness side of things too.
Yeah.
And then eventually like started a new account, like shifted everything.
Yeah.
But I also like
I
used to
love
have that kind of
that.
content.
Yeah, and then I think it just shifted when I moved to the city, and I was really feeling like I needed tools to ground myself, and that's what I was like,
Yeah.
okay, how can I lean into wellness? How can I like I was always a healthy person, but like I was just, how can I nourish myself more and ground myself in this crazy
Like you need it.
city? Like you need it. So I was going to meditation studios and posting about that. Like I was just finding
Mm,
things that I could like share about. And I had like a little blog, and it was just kind of like growing organically, and it's been a slow growth, but like I've been doing it in the sense that like it just feels like authentic. Like as I've gone through the years, it just has become more aligned and more authentic as I've grown.
yeah. And so that was like around the time that you decided to leave the corporate world.
Yeah, like I had an Instagram following already at that point a little bit. And that was back in 2018, 2018, I would say. Yeah. And then once I kind of transitioned, I was consulting full time. I was doing content and
Were you doing like
influencing.
brand consulting?
Yeah, brand consulting, brand partnerships. And then COVID, like once I got reattuned in Reiki, that's when I was like, how can I shift this content and show up more and like share more of my voice, and not just like the wellness side, but also the spiritual side too.
Oh my gosh. Wait, this is so cool. I'm like trying to piece it all together. So I feel like it was like ever since you were little, it was always there.
It was always there. Yeah.
Like the seed was planted when you were so young.
Yeah.
And similarly, but not in the same exact way, my mom is an energy healer.
I
She
love
doesn't
that.
do
I
it
feel like
like
you
that
told me
much,
this.
but the type of energy healing she does is like an Asian technique, and
Mm.
it's the studio is called Mahikari, so it's like they're not allowed to like charge for services, like they're not allowed to charge for energy healing. You can go and get like energy healing for free in any
Mm-hmm.
dojo. But I used to go with her when I was very young as well, and I
Wow.
remember like I guess I was just like exposed to
Yeah.
that from a
Yeah.
very young age, and I was also like very drawn to like astrology and like different little spiritual tools. So I feel like when you're drawn to it, like it usually
Mm-hmm.
starts like when you're young, like it's always a
Mm-hmm.
part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you moved to the city, I'm really curious, like where did you go to college?
Yeah. So I went to school near at Towson. It was near in Maryland, near Baltimore. So it was kind of like a city school.
And then you moved to New York right after?
Yeah, I'm from like outside of Philly. So I went home, and I thought I was gonna like find a job there. That was my plan, was to go back home because that's where I'm from. And I was like, I want to be home. And then I honestly found my first job through an Instagram DM, which is crazy. Like an agency literally
Really?
DM'd me and was like, "Hey, we like your Instagram. Do you want to have a interview with us?" And I was like, "Okay." Like it seemed so
It like
sketchy.
came to
It
you.
came to me, and I was like, I didn't at the time, like social media was just becoming a thing. I didn't realize you could even do that as a living. I was like, what? I could post on social media and get paid? Like, what? And that's really when like influencers were coming about, and I was learning from the brand perspective how to work with influencers, how to create campaigns, how to launch, things with the brand side, but I was also growing my platform too. So it was like kind of an interesting,
Duality, you got
yeah.
both sides. And I feel like the brand side is also so interesting.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
like knowing more about it. Like it's
Mhm.
such a useful skill to have.
Yeah.
Because whenever you create your own brands,
Yeah.
like you can apply everything that you've learned.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. So yeah, I guess like it's so interesting how it started so young for you,
Mhm.
but then when did you get your Reiki certification? Like, when did you decide to become certified?
So I guess once you kind of have it in you, it's always part of you. But like at that point, I was only probably level one, meaning like when I was young, throughout until college,
But you
until
were already level 1.
yeah, I already had it in me that I could give myself Reiki. But I wanted to be able to give, like, have the option to give others. So that's when I found a Reiki practitioner who, she's a Reiki healer, master healer who did Holy Fire. It's a type of Reiki. And so we connected and she offered me, like, we did an attunement together. I did one of her things and it was literally like a few months before the pandemic. But again, like at that time, I still wasn't thinking like, I'm going to help people. It was more just like I wanted to get an upgrade, like it's what's called, you can get upgrades. So I got an upgrade. I got like the Holy Fire, which is just a little bit more of a intense and like it's a really beautiful type of Reiki. So I did that. And then I started, you know, the pandemic happened. I started seeing people, and then a little bit post pandemic, because I don't know, it was like the in between stage. Um, like I decided again, since people were online, I was like, I'm going to get another attunement of the virtual space. So when COVID happened, they actually, like, the Reiki masters around the world, I don't really know the correct terms, but they came together and Reiki became stronger through online. So you can send it,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
like distant Reiki, you can send, like, because it goes beyond time and space. And you can send it through the screen, you can send it to somebody from their past, you know, like it doesn't have to be
Wow.
like in the moment.
But is that the specific, like, what is it? Ring of fire? Breath of
Um,
fire? Like, is that that specific or just in general?
in general, Reiki just became more strong through the digital space because people, like, there was this upgrade essentially. So I got upgraded again, and that was like, you know, almost 2 years ago at this point. And as soon as that happened, that's really when people started coming to me, and I was not putting myself out there like as a
Like, I
Reiki
feel like it
healer.
really grew as a thing, like
Yeah.
getting Reiki healing or like working with healers online.
Yeah. And that's when people were coming to me, and I was like, when things come to me in that way, like I know that that's part of my alignment of like trusting and offering that
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah, definitely. And how does that play a role, like energy healing, chakra work, like in your day-to-day life?
In my day-to-day, I still use it all the time on myself. Like before I came here, I Reiki'd myself. Like I do it every day, and it's more for me to connect with my own energy and to clear out, like I can naturally pick up a lot of people's energy. I'm an empath. I in human design, I don't know if you ever talk about it on your
Mm-hmm.
podcast, but
What's your type?
I'm a reflector.
You're a
So,
reflector. Yeah, we've talked about this.
yeah,
But like reflectors are very rare.
they're really rare, and all of our energy centers are open, which kind of makes sense that I'm into chakras because it literally, like, I'm
Mm.
a mirror for other people to see their own health and what they need to kind of work on. So I can
Like
trigger
every single center.
every center, so I can take on people's energy easily, and I have to be really, like, that's why doing my own energy healing on myself and like protecting myself and realigning my chakras daily is so important. And that's why I think I've always felt so connected to them even before I knew that I was a reflector, what that was. So
Wow.
yeah, and that's what I keep coming back to is alignment. And like I have a method I came up with called the aligned method, and it's basically a method that goes through each chakra to help you feel in more alignment with your truth, with your authenticity, with your essence, based on like your energy type, based on what's going on in your body and your own energy and like your limiting beliefs, your background. Like,
Is that like what you use when you're working one-on-one with people?
yeah.
Is that what you like anchor your content in? Or is it just in general like your philosophy?
It's just kind of my philosophy, and I'm trying to weave it more into my content. Like I've been sharing more about it. I recently have been on like a few panels where I shared the method, and I'm like creating courses around the method.
Can you give us a little rundown?
Yeah, I'll just walk through like what it is essentially,
Mm-hmm.
it like in a quick way, but essentially, um, so each letter is associated with a chakra. So the root chakra is A for awareness, and it's all about the first step of, you know, energy and change and growth is getting in awareness with where you're at. And that's also the root chakra. It's huge when it comes to understanding the foundation. You can't
Like
grow.
get real with
Right.
yourself.
And you can't grow without a steady foundation. So you need to become aware of like where you're at. That's the first number one step. And then part 2, the next step is leaning into the sacral chakra, which is our emotion center and our joy and our creativity. So that's all about leaning into and listening to what is limiting us from joy and pleasure, our limiting beliefs.
What's the L?
Limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs.
So it's all about it's all about listening to what is limiting us and stopping us from feeling joy and from creating, like these beliefs that we picked up in childhood that we're repressing, our shadows, like all these doubts. And then you go into the solar plexus, the power center, confidence, and it's all about intention. It's kind of like a 2-part. So it's identifying a new belief. Once you've kind of recognized the limiting belief, it's identifying a new belief. And then it's also setting intentions on how you're going to take daily action to work through that belief, because like intentions are great. And the solar plexus is what fires us to actually take the action, especially with our self-worth.
Right.
So that's like and so those 3 are the lower chakras. That's like that's our internal world. That's our upbringing. And then you get into the heart. So G is gratitude, and obviously, and it's all about love, but also from a place of forgiveness for yourself, for your past, for others, looking at all these shadows and all these kind of like lower energies and this inner world, and having gratitude for where you're at and what you've learned.
And even for the pain.
Exactly, for the pain, everything. Because in order to really get more of what you want and be attracting and abundance and all these things and in alignment, you need to have gratitude. Like
I literally saw a thread about this the other day, and it was someone just, I think I re-threaded it, and it was just like, gratitude is the like biggest manifestation force.
I love that quote. It's
something like that.
It's basically, it brings you closer to magnetism because it's just such a high vibrational frequency. But it's hard. Like, it can be tough when you don't look at the shadows and the other things and you don't work through those first. It can be tough to then be like, I'm so grateful for everything. So you really have to like dig deep into that subconscious, and that's where all those lower energies kind of play. And then we go up. So the heart is the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras, and the upper chakras are your external and how you present to the world.
Fun fact, on the human design centers, only my upper chakras are open. So like all of my bottom chakras are closed, but then I'm pretty sure I think it's just my third eye and my crown.
Wow. And what type are you?
Generator.
Yeah, so you probably have like a lot of ideas constantly, and like you feel really grounded. Yeah.
From like other people's ideas or like other people's anxieties, and like I'll still pick up on that.
And it's probably, I think, what is your energy center that you have to lean into? Is it yours?
Sacral.
Yeah.
But like my authority, I think it is actually solar plexus.
Okay.
So I'm like, or no, I'm an emotional.
So you have to lean into your emotions to make decisions. Yeah. And what feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, keep going.
Okay, so then you go into your throat chakra, which is your communication, obviously, how you express yourself, express your authenticity, and that is non-negotiables. So, and non-negotiables and saying no. So in order to get what we want and to be in our truth, we have to learn boundaries. We have to learn to speak and say no to things that do not align with us, and we have to have these non-negotiables. So it's about finding what those are for you and working through those. And then going into your third eye, obviously your intuition, it's all about expansion and embodiment. So this is like the manifestation part of it. But first we have to have the lower and all these things in place. But essentially, this is really where you're looking at other people and you're looking at your triggers and where you're feeling envious. So it's really about like, how is this person being a mirror for me of what I need to embody more of? So how are they expanding me to see what's possible for me? One, because that's really when you're envious of somebody, it's envy to expansion. That is a invitation to say that is something I desire for myself. And so it's looking about other people as mirrors for how are you judging them in the way either you're triggered and you're not fully embodying that trait, that quality, that whatever it is, or how are you envious of them because you really desire that for yourself.
Yeah, so but then also what's really hitting for me is the embodiment.
Yeah, which is huge. Like you need to have, because the embodiment really plays into the intuition. You have to trust yourself and you have to, with full conviction, believe in yourself and embody that. It can't just be like...
Like you have to embody what you're preaching. Like you have to be the example.
Exactly. And then from there, it's really, the crown is the last. And that's one we're always working on, because we all have different purposes. We all have different connections to the universe. But us being here is a divine. But D, I should have made it divine. But D is desires and downloads. And that's really listening to what your purpose is calling you, because your desires is your purpose. What you feel you desire is really what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do.
Oh my
And
gosh, like this is a conversation I needed so badly today, and I'm so
oh,
happy we're talking about this.
oh my
I'm
God, it makes me
obsessed
so
with this
happy, because
method.
I like need to share more about it. Like, it's, to me, when you make something up, you're like, does it make
No,
sense?
I literally can't stop smiling because it makes
Oh my
so much sense and
God.
it's so important. And you're like kind of like verbalizing it and like concretizing it in such a easy to grasp way.
Thank you so much for saying
No, I
that.
literally mean it. And side note, but I got into chakra work and like energy healing work and all of that
Mhm.
during COVID. So in
Mhm.
2020, I don't know how, but I was just like stumbling upon different meditations on YouTube.
Mhm.
And I was just like typing like 10-minute meditation or something. Like that's how I kind of got into it. Well, I did a challenge, and then once the challenge finished, I was just doing the YouTube meditations. And I think I stumbled upon like a 10-minute chakra balancing meditation.
Yeah.
So it just was like a kind of like a basic one, like affirmations for each chakra,
Mhm.
and then you
Mhm.
just kind of go through it. And then I started doing the meditations for each one. So it was like 10-minute or 15-minute meditations for each chakra, and I was doing them like consistently. When I was doing for a period of time, like only root and sacral, I started having like a lot of random bleeding, and
I
like my
remember you
IUD got
telling
out
me
of
this
place.
with your period. You like did a root chakra meditation and you got your period back or
Like I
something.
just started bleeding and I still had an IUD. So I like took it
Wow.
out, and like that also kickstarted me like
Yeah.
connecting more with my cycle. And then like I honestly haven't done them in so long, but
Mhm.
when I first moved to the city, I was going to this place called The Well, and I was getting
Mhm.
Reiki there, and I've done Reiki healing like virtually, and
Yeah.
it's so powerful like you were saying. Like
Yeah.
when I got the Reiki healing virtually, like I literally like felt it so strongly in
Oh
my
yeah.
body. Like I was like shaking a little bit. Like it was so nice.
Right.
And it's been a while. I think the last time I got Reiki was like February of last year. So it's
You
been a
need to get
while,
some.
and I feel like when you're really connected with it and really consistent with working through the chakras and like
Mhm.
constantly tuning back in, it's really powerful. But even having the layer of like you being a
Right.
practitioner, I feel like you're able to spot the imbalances more easily. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I can't really tell
Yeah.
what's in balance, but then that's where your framework is really helpful
Right.
because you're able to spot like, oh, which of those letters like am I feeling the most stuck with now? Am I feeling really envious and jealous, and like is that what's coming up, or is it that I'm just like not being able to be grateful, or am I just like
Mhm.
ignoring all the things that I'm doing and I don't have any awareness of myself right now? Like there's
Yeah.
all these different things you can tune back in to.
Yeah, and to me that's coming back into alignment,
Yeah.
because it's not about them all being like perfectly balanced. Like that's not realistic. Mine aren't. I'm always working on my root chakra. I'm always working on feeling safe. I mean, probably cuz the Virgo, like I need
But also like New
stability.
York.
But also New York. And like I'm working through limiting beliefs. Like I'm constantly working through my lower ones, and those are really important to me. And then I was just going to say one other thing with the crown. The last part is downloads. And the downloads are really where the angel numbers come in, and the universe and the pings. Because once you start listening and paying attention to those, you start trusting the universe more. You start feeling more connected to it. But going back to the
Yeah.
Reiki part, you don't have to necessarily get Reiki in order to connect with these chakras. It's really about just understanding what each one, the seven main ones are, and noticing the symptoms for when they're blocked, quote unquote, or when they're opened, so that you can be like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. That probably could mean like my root is I'm not my nervous system is not regulated, and like that I think that's why I always talk about that one is we need a regulated nervous system. And I feel like that's becoming such a popular
I'm happy it's a
conversation.
trend.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a trending like nervous system regulation, but it really comes down to like feeling safe in your body and feeling
Safe in your space as
safe in your
well.
space. Yeah.
And how do you like to regulate your nervous system?
So I just did a post about this. Let me try and think of the things I posted about. Essentially, I'm always working with my root chakra. So things that basically help me feel grounded, especially in the summer, like getting my feet on bare grass as much as I can, or if I'm like, not in the city, you can't do that,
Like you can go to a
obviously,
park.
but you can go to a park, anything that really helps you feel connected to the earth. So like meditations that help you feel
So being in
centered.
the ocean is just the best for that.
I I mean, it's
I
like
wish
that
we
when
could.
I meditate, like I think about being on the ocean. Like that's my happy place. And which is funny because I don't really have, my big three doesn't have any water,
Yeah.
but like I feel so connected to water for some reason.
Do you
So
know your Venus or your Mars?
my Venus is Libra.
What about
Mars,
Mars?
I actually don't know. I'll have to look into that.
I mean, Libra is ruled by Venus, so that's a great placement to have.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if you had any like Cancer.
I like don't have really Cancer in my chart.
I guess
mean,
you
I
have
know we all
Cancer
have.
in your 12th house, so like your
Yeah.
spiritual house is very much like nurturing.
Well, and what's weird is that my 12th house is opened.
Like you don't have any planets.
Yeah.
I have Pisces 12th house.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any planets there either, but I still feel like it plays a big role in my life.
Yeah. Doesn't that mean that like you kind of already went through in different lives? Like I don't know if this
That
is
energy,
true.
like your 12th house, like the sign right before your rising sign. So
Mhm.
for example, I'm an Aries rising. So for me, my 12th house is Pisces. For you, Leo rising. So your 12th house is Cancer. And that's kind of like the energy we bring in from like a past life. Or it's like more of like our subconscious even.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I need to look more into that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just do things that help me connect back to my body and help me feel safe. So like you can do alternate nostril breathing, you can do tapping, somatic therapy, like different somatic things you can Google. But my favorite is probably just like honestly listening to sound therapy. Like I literally will just put on high vibe frequency chakra frequencies on Spotify and like it
that
helps.
stuff honestly helps so much.
It helps
I haven't
so
done
much.
it in a while, but
Yeah.
I have a little playlist that I like a lot. And
especially when like you're on the subway like commuting and you just kind of like feel like you need protection
yeah,
and like recentering.
One thing that I do similar to that is like whenever I'm walking on the street or I notice someone like looking at me weird or whatever, even if I don't look at them, like I can tell that they're looking at me. I just like envision this like bubble around me, like a little like hamster bubble, like they can like having a little kids party or something, but like that level of like surrounding me, like that circumference, and like just a light. Yeah. Like just a white bubble surrounding me. So like any negative energy that would like come my way would be just reflected back.
That's great. I mean, that's like our aura extends outside of us. So like technically people, if you're trying to protect yourself, you're protecting your aura and like people from coming into that energy field. So yeah, it's a really good method to use.
Side note on that, I like on like auras and your energy field and things like that. I feel like there's some people that just like don't like being hugged because of various reasons. Yeah. Like, but I'm like a hugger. Yeah. So I wonder if like because I'm such a hugger and I'm like so touchy and like I just like greet people with a lot of like warmth, if like that's kind of like tied to why I pick up on like other people's
maybe
kind of like anxieties and like thoughts and
I mean like I feel like that also probably is what you were saying with the human design, that those are open channels like that. Yeah. And you're probably just an empath in general. So
like,
I think
I can be a sponge and I also am very intuitive. Like little like funny little comments, but when you came in the door into my apartment building, you like brought up my Amazon box that had just arrived. Yeah. And right before you got here, when you were texting me that you were on the way, I was like eating my lunch and I got an email notification that my Amazon package arrived. And I literally had a thought. I was like, for some reason, I feel like she's gonna bring in my Amazon package.
That's so weird.
And like I like thought that I knew that was gonna happen, but it's so random. Like how?
I love that. You're just very like intuitive. You're just yeah, you're connected. But I think for that, like the protection bubble is great. I love using smudge like really mindfully when I come back from anything that's like a lot of energy. Do it mindfully? I'm sourcing it from places that I know is sustainable, and it's from cultures that I'm not like trying, you know, it's hard because a lot of this feels like whitewashing and appropriation. I really try to be mindful of like my intention for using it. And where I source it, and
but like where do you actually get it from?
So Energy Muse is like one of the places that I go to, and then you can just find places that have like that are really sourcing it sustainably and in a, I don't know the top of my head, but like I have so many like, because I don't use it all the time. Like it lasts forever. It lasts so long. And I've just kind of gotten some that I know are from a really good source, from a sustainably like not harming the trees and coming from like shamanic and like, you know, integrated places that are of integrity.
Okay, got you. And about like that, like in the vein of smudging and like energy clearing and things like that, like just a little question I have actually. Every time I light Palo Santo, it just like goes out like very fast. Like, is there a trick to keeping your Palo Santo like lit longer?
Well, you have to make sure the smoke is but the trick is you have to see that the smoke, like the flame turns orange. So like when you light it, you want it to kind of turn like darker. Like you want to hold it until you're watching it just like
Kind of catch on fire a lot.
yeah. Yeah. But Palo Santo isn't the same as smudge. Like it's smaller. It's wood, so it's gonna burn faster than like
Like
a
sage.
sage. And it's just like a quick thing, but I always like if I'm gonna sage, I always end with Palo Santo because saging essentially gets rid of every energy, like even good and bad. So that's why like bringing in a nice smell, whether it's like a nice spray or aromatherapy, a room spray, a candle, or obviously Palo Santo, like that helps bring in good energy. So you can use it on its own, but like I
Oh.
just tell people if they're saging to actually
Add
follow
something
it up with
after.
something. Yeah, so that
That's
you're
a
kind of
good
bringing
tip.
in like a new energy essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the vein of like empaths and just like picking up on other people's energy, and also like because you're so attuned
Mm-hmm.
to the chakras and to like your own energy, like for example, let's say right now, like you're just
Yeah.
with me, like there's no one else really around, like are you able to tell like if a certain chakra of mine is like open or closed or blocked, or do you have to really like tune in and like get in the zone to like
Yeah.
actually see that or pick up on that?
Yeah. I definitely lean more into like if I was doing a session with you and like Reiki specifically, I would just kind of feel where my body's telling me to like put my hands for you and like maybe like thoughts that are coming up or I ask my clients ahead of time like what is coming up and they don't necessarily know it's for the chakras, but like I
Mm-hmm.
know that if they're saying like they're feeling anxious, I'm going to work with their root chakra. If they're feeling ungrounded, I'm going to start there versus if they're like having other types of emotions come into play, like that might be or like love or whatever they're going through, I know like how to work with the specific chakra for them. So it's more about like being really mindful of I would sit with you and then
And
see
then
what was
like
coming
open
up.
up to
Yeah.
like pick up on it, because I was always curious, for people who are energy healers or who work in this
Mhm.
space, like how it affects you if like you're around a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, if I pick it up, then I have to discern like what isn't mine. So like if I went home and like was feeling a certain way, I'd have to kind of just clear it and know it's maybe not my energy
Yeah.
and know the difference between is this mine? Am I taking on somebody else? And I actually did a reading, an Akashic record reading recently. And the woman told me that one, I have to protect myself more with my Reiki because I haven't been protecting myself enough when I'm giving it, and that I had seven
Mm.
energy types that were not like energies that were not mine that I've picked up that she like cleared. And I
Wow.
felt so much lighter afterwards, but like I didn't know that. Like I felt kind of like a heaviness like since I moved, like there was just like a lot going on in my life and but I didn't realize it was like, that I had picked up that many people's energies. And so she also told me like one of my protectors, my angels is Archangel Michael, and he's like huge with protection. So she told me to like really lean in on that energy of like this blue light of
Wait, I've
just
been told that before
really.
too.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been told it so many times. So he's like the protection angel and this is really also why I feel like went through all my pregnancy, which I can get more into. Like I really leaned into feeling protected by angels. Like I was wearing my 444 angel number socks to every appointment. And now I like realize that like, he was probably with me and like protecting me and my other guides. But even if you believe it or not, like it doesn't hurt. You know what I mean?
Oh
So like
yeah.
just calling on that energy, like she even told me, and then I had another reading like a few weeks later, and the person said the same thing, like call on protection and Archangel Michael for like when you're having these thoughts, these ruminating thoughts, just like let them out, like whether it's talking them out to like the guides or writing it out on a
Mm-hmm.
journal, like brain dumping in the morning and getting it out so that like it's not yours to hold.
Yeah, it's so funny that we're talking about this. I feel like in the last like week, I've been really reattuning to my spirituality and connecting with myself on this level, because this was like a big part of my life in COVID, like in
Mm-hmm.
2020 and even the beginning of 2021. And over time, I guess since moving to the city, I've gotten a little bit more disconnected from it. And in the last like literally like few days, I've been like brain dumping in the morning and like really like taking my mornings more slow and really paying attention to like the songs that are coming up on my shuffle
Mm-hmm.
and like different little coincidences and like things that are connecting to each other in conversations that I'm having or podcasts that I'm listening, like just putting the pieces together of like different experiences that I'm having. And one thing that has been coming up a lot is this concept of being a sponge and being an empath. And the funny thing is that growing up, or even like a few years ago, like my parents probably would still say this to me, but they're like, "Oh, you're not empathetic." But I actually am like very much an empath, and I pick up on people's emotions. But what ends up happening is I like pick up on it, and then I embody it, and then I like
Mm-hmm.
am acting out like their anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to learn how to like separate energetically and learn to be able to tell when something isn't mine. Like when
Yeah.
an energy is just someone else's, and when a limiting belief is someone else's. And the thing is that we live in a world of so much stimulation, content, things flooding our brain. So sometimes it's like you might have just seen a TikTok where
Mm-hmm.
someone was talking about an experience, and then that just like is absorbed into your energy field
Yeah.
because you're not cautious about being like that is that person's
Yeah.
story and limiting belief and problem, and it's not mine to absorb.
So when I first learned about human design, I remember for at least reflectors, but it goes for empaths too, the saying of observe, not absorb. And that is what my mantra is when I feel like that is coming on. Like I'm like, okay, how can I be a mirror for people and live my purpose as a human design as a reflector without absorbing it, without letting it be mine. And
Mm-hmm.
it is hard, like it takes work, but using these tools and coming back to that awareness is the first step. Like literally journaling it out, you start to like pick up and realize like, wait, like what? Like I'll notice things I'm like, that's literally like my mom shit. Like that's not even
Yeah.
mine. Like I don't need to hold that. I don't need to
Yeah.
take that on. I can release that. Another thing I like is selenite. Like I love carrying selenite with me to protect me and cleanse. I
Is
love
that white, like
the
the
white
white longer
wand. I
one?
have the big one at home and I just kind of like I go through over my chakras with it and just clear those out with it. And that's a great like smudge free option that you can like bring on the go or use to just clear that.
Mm-hmm. Is your husband spiritual?
I think we're all spiritual. Like we're
Yes, but
all,
I'm just saying like
but in
connected to
the
this stuff
way
because
in
like
the answer
Pedro is a Gemini too, and he's like not very
no,
connected to this
the
stuff.
right answer is no. Like he's not, but he's open minded. I think with
Yeah.
his Gemini ness, and he because he's more analytical. Like he needs like to see things. He
Yeah.
needs to like have evidence of stuff. And we actually just were on like our baby moon, so we did meditate together. And it was his first time doing like a sound bath meditation and like just being open to it. Like what I've noticed is I lead by example and I can't force him to do this work. He
Yeah.
has to want to do it. And like him even just doing that and being open to it was like it meant something to me and I really
Yeah, it means
appreciated
so
it. And
much.
like just having his energy like sitting next to me, like I just felt connected. Like I'm not going to sit there and ask him to like do that all the time, but like he got what he needed out of it.
Mm-hmm.
He took something out of it that he was like, wow, that was really nice. Like this is what came up for me. And like we spoke about it. And I feel like it opens the door to like other things in the future and like being
Yes.
more mindful of stuff. But
Yeah.
he supports me and that's really what matters to me is I don't think many people, guys maybe that I like at least I'm friends with or the kind of people I grew up with would accept that. And I just
Yeah.
feel like not that that's like the gold standard, but like everyone should, like your partner should accept you, but like at the same time it's a difference between just accepting and like he appreciates what I do and he knows that
Yeah.
it's meaningful to me, just like he golfs and that's his thing and I have to like let him do that. This is my thing and what brings me joy, and he would
Absolutely.
never stop that or try to change it.
Yeah, I guess in my relationship it's pretty similar. Where like Pedro's not spiritual necessarily, but he's open minded and he
Mhm.
respects how much I love astrology and how much I love talking about like these different things. And sometimes he'll like do breath work with me or like do a
I love
meditation.
that.
Like it's like the little things. Like it
Yeah.
matters more than they realize, I
Yeah.
think.
100%.
And in terms of like your pregnancy, what do you feel like it's taught you the most and how have you approached it like in a spiritual way?
It's taught me to slow down. It's taught me presence and just like embracing the now because there's so much unknown with it of like especially the first trimester I was constantly thinking the worst. I was like just every appointment I was like scared something bad was going to happen or that like it was going to be taken from me. Like I was just having a lot of fear come up around it and I think it comes back to like probably limiting beliefs and like abandonment issues of just like my childhood. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was definitely things there that I've learned, but it really taught me to like just kind of lean into like the process of the now and like that I can't really control everything and I just have to trust. So the first trimester, even though it was really hard, like I just kept trusting that what was supposed to happen for me was happening. Like if this baby was going to make it. Like that's, that would be my story. And it's hard to kind of go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as like somebody who likes to control things and likes to plan and think about the future. So I was
In perfect Virgo energy.
yeah, I was like constantly thinking about like, how can I rush through this and like go to the next trimester when I can tell people, like, how can I rush? And then in the second I was like, okay, how can I rush through that and like start doing all these like the little like planning like the doula and all the things I need to do off my to-do list, like, and I just kind of felt like I've been rushing it because I wanted to just get through.
It's like when you're trying to plan, you're low-key kind of rushing it.
Yeah.
Like you're not being in presence sometimes.
Right.
And I resonate a lot with that, like quality. You're just like doing that a lot
Yeah.
unconsciously.
And now that I'm in the third trimester, I'm like, holy shit, like I wish it would just slow down. Now I'm like, I realize like how presence is so important and how like not trying to like rush through, like I have to go through these little steps and these like discomforts or like these learnings to get to the next level to be a mom. So
yeah. But you're gonna be an amazing mom. I can already tell.
Thank you. But yeah, I'm still like, there's still moments where I'm like I woke up at 4 a.m. of like, I haven't read enough baby books. I'm not doing enough. Like I need to do more. And it's like, I think it's showing the shadow of the limiting belief I have of not being enough, which comes up for me a lot in work, in now pregnancy. It's that limiting belief that I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough. And that's what I'm working through right now, through this lesson.
Just being like, I'm enough.
I'm enough. Right.
There's never going to be an enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's profound. That's like powerful. Because I feel like that all the time too. It's like, it comes up a lot. I think for earth signs, especially like if you have Taurus, Capricorn, or Virgo in your big three, it's like very, very prominent.
Yeah.
To feel like you constantly have to be like measuring how well you're doing against like other people or against like a measure of success that's super intense or unrealistic.
Yeah. It's a big worthiness component, like just not feeling worthy enough, which that is what I'm always working through, because as I've like started to just manifest things in my life and work through more sharing about manifestation, like self-worth is where we manifest from.
It's so key.
It's so key.
Because it's like that gratitude, but then it's also just being like, I deserve it. I'm enough. Yeah. I'm ready.
But it's hard on the conscious level. Like on the conscious level, you can believe that. You can think that, right, in your head. Like, I know I'm enough. But on a subconscious, like deeper level, and these were like these triggers and these shadows come up. Like if you really don't have evidence or you grew up not believing that, you have to go through those layers. You have to peel back, like, how do I get back to like that authenticity, to that alignment, knowing that I am enough, but like not on a conscious level, on like such a deeper level. You have to really go inward and do that shadow work.
But I feel like that like requires like intention, requires silence. Like how do you access that? Like if someone's listening and they're like, oh, holy shit, like I feel like I'm not enough all the time, like, but I can tell myself on a conscious level, like I am enough and say the affirmations, but how do you get to that subconscious healing?
That is, to me, working a lot with the sacral, because the sacral is our emotions. It's our joy and our pleasure, and it's connected so much to our inner child. So if we're repressing like emotions, like if we have, pain in our hips, like that's like a key indicator. Like that's where all of our emotions live, is our hips. Sexuality, like fertility issues, not getting your period.
The actual hip here on the side.
Yeah, and your sacral, like your whole pelvic area, like I used to have a lot of period issues, like, and that is really tied to your emotions and to your childhood. And it's also,
what about bloating and like
that ties into it, but I feel like that's more solar plexus, which does go back to your confidence and your worth, because I also had a lot of stomach issues growing up, but like nothing that was like, it was the typical IBS. It was the typical like, you have anxiety, just like manage your anxiety and you'll be fine. Like, and yeah, I went gluten-free and that helped tremendously, but I realized like my stomach issues went away when I started to lean more into my confidence and into my inner power.
Okay, what's like your number one tip to activate confidence and inner power?
So confidence is doing the things you say you're going to do. It's taking the little steps. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it's taking those action steps that show that you can trust yourself. So when you start doing things over and over that you say like, okay, it could be a little thing like, I'm going to go on a date. I'm going to match with this person. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to give this person my number. I'm going to connect with this person. Like whatever it is, like the little things that you can do to take the first step and start building off that and committing to, like, it's a commitment to yourself. And
and sometimes committing to yourself means doing things that are really uncomfortable or that you've
yeah.
never done. And I feel like what's coming up for me recently is kind of like grieving my old self in the sense of just being like, yes, my old self did X, Y, and Z, but like I don't want that to be a part of me anymore. So let me just like hold space to like let that part of me go. And then like once I'm able to let her go, then I can create the new self.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's death of ego, which you need your ego obviously to live, and to, you need a healthy ego. It's not about like killing the ego. We want a healthy ego and balancing that. But when we're able to like look past our ego and really just lean into our authenticity and like our true innate worthiness, we're able to evolve into the person that we actually are, and those shadow elements and those pieces of us, the old patterns and the old parts of us, start to die away. And like it's scary because it's uncomfortable. Like I'm going through this now as I'm like changing and I'm getting through a new identity, and work is changing, and just like everything about me is changing, and I have to lean into trust, and I have to take these baby steps of like, one, just kind of like going with what is and not trying to force, but also two, like leaning into those moments of confidence and like keep going even if it's
Yeah.
scary and hard and I don't know what's on the other side.
Yeah. It's like releasing that control.
Yeah.
Especially with like motherhood. I feel like if there's anything that just completely transforms you and changes you and you can't control exactly how, it's motherhood.
I like met a couple on my baby moon, and they were like, I told them I don't know how this came up, but we were talking. I was like, yeah, I'm a perfectionist. They're like, you're gonna fuck up. Like, let that shit go, because you're going to fuck up, but you're going to be great. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, is like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, I'm gonna learn from it.
It's magical how like someone's comment can literally like echo in your brain, like resonate in such a deep way.
And we were just like walking on the beach and they started talking to me. Like, and that's when I'm like, okay, the universe, that's when it's communicating to me and I have to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing's a coincidence.
Like pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I can't believe it's almost been an hour already. So let's do some rapid fire questions. I do this in every episode. So if you listen to a few, you probably know what they are. Okay. But first one is, do you have a quote or mantra that you come back to frequently or that you love?
I have so many, but I think it's just like the most resonant one is like following your truth and like what lights you up. If it's not a hell yes, like I love the expression, it's a hell no.
Yeah. Also, observe, not absorb.
Observe, not absorb.
Yeah. I like that one a lot also. Yeah. And do you have any books that you love or that have been a big part of your journey that you would recommend to anyone listening?
Power of Now, Untethered, I never know how to say it. Untethered Soul.
Those are so good.
And so good. If anyone's like trying to conceive or just like thinking about that, Spirit Babies was like, I read that before I even was trying. And I just like felt so connected to, like, we're all babies. Like, we come from spirit. Like, we chose our parents. We chose the path that we wanted. And the book just brings like to light so much of how we are connected with, babies and our future children.
Okay, next question. What makes you feel like your higher self?
Oh my God, I love that. When I'm saying yes to things that really feel in alignment, and when I'm doing things that bring me joy, because I've noticed that like joy is ultimately what brings me magnetism.
Okay, very last question is, if someone didn't hear anything from this whole episode except this part, what would you want to leave them with?
Leaning into awareness and into your own energy is so important. Like, just understanding yourself on a level of what makes you you, and how can you tap into your own inner knowing. You're your own guide. Like, we all have these tools within us. I know it's so cliche, but it's so true. Like, we all are our own guide, and all you have to do is really lean in and listen to that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really hard to listen when you have so much noise around you.
Yeah.
Like, noise, not even like literal noise, like music or whatever, but also like people.
Yeah.
Social media, like texting, emails. Like, it's important to tune in. And sometimes you need silence, or you need to like be really intentional to create that, especially if you live in a busy
100%
city.
Yeah, finding alignment within yourself and your truth.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh my God, this was so fun. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. Can you plug yourself, tell people listening where they can follow you or just be in the loop of your world?
So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm not really on there, but Alyssa Brieloff, and that's my website as well. And I sell angel number socks on my site, and I have my offers, my Reiki offerings, and I'm working on this course. So hopefully we'll be sharing more about the aligned method and just how you can find more alignment within your life.
I love that. Everyone go give her a follow. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're enjoying the podcast, remember to hit the plus button on Apple and the bell icon on Spotify so you can be notified of all of our future episodes. I'll see you guys next week. And until then, remember to water yourself. And I'm sending you a big hug. All right, bye.